For plebs, by plebs, dropping the Bitcoin-only signal. PlebUnderground. Welcome everyone to the PlebUnderground.
Welcome back to PlebUnderground. This is episode 43. Sometimes I write while listening to a beat, feel the mood and tempo, hit the loop and repeat, tunneling messages to my peers like Keat, speaking independently, leaving the sheep to bleat. They call it a bear market, but very far from bleak. There's plenty of time to build, havoc to wreak. Bitcoin UX, it needs to be neater, catered to normies, not just the mean tweeter. Horn sacks all the trumpets, cup of tea and a pile of crumpets. Satoshi round table, coordinate to pump it. Recruit new retail just to dump it. Oh, it's for adoption, like an orphaned block. Cheating not an option, when the game theories rock. One day they throw paper, but not in the club. Degeneracy to taper, be honest, is it a dub? Excise your harmful growth, cut it out with scissors. Money or freedom, why not both? Celebrate with some fizzers. Sometimes life not satisfying, but bitty. So build, meet a nice girl and say hello kitty. Writing anew, this time from the airport. Battles have been won, warfare fought. Evolving one told message in the times. Minority report, solving unsolved rhymes. Lyrical addressings I like to administer. Blessings from up high, like I'm a minister. Join it in my right hand, not left like the sinister. Off on a jet, good time to visit her. Blindfolded black, she never jack C. Put her on her back, give her tenacious D. Teach her a lesson face to face. Put her between the school of rock and a hard place. Each new transaction passes node inspection, each securely segregated, witness protection. The Genesis block was ahead of the times. I don't know where it begun, but it rhymes. Who will you be with when Bitcoin moons? Time should be shared like birthday balloons. Head over heels, she actually tripped. Securely visualized, fractal encrypt. Little left curves with a high functioning twist. Not sure if this is art, but I'm an artist.
Walton, absolutely awesome. And recording from a secret location, I might add. Joining us today, awesome fellow Bitcoiner. Got to meet Blockbane actually 2 years ago at the Bitcoin conference. That's right. We've got T-Bane, Blockbane joining us. My dude, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Glad to be here. Got to represent the plebs. I love what you guys are doing. So let's get rocking.
All right.
This guy is neither short Bitcoin nor short, and in Bitcoin that's quite rare.
I like that. All right, Walton, you know what we're doing. We are moving on over to the number.
Yeah, the numbers, of course, brought to us by TimeChain Stats and TimeChain Calendar. What do they look like this week, Phil?
At the time of this recording, the block height is 795,601. The Bitcoin fiat exchange, or fiat Bitcoin exchange, 31,160. Total public lightning capacity, 5,442.51. Moscow time 3209. It's going down. It's going down. Anyways, chain rewrite day 711. The uneventful numbers, guys. What do we think?
You say uneventful numbers, and
yeah, they're uneventful.
I see Twitter and people and Odell asking, "Oh, is Bitcoin actually going to go to 1 million in 90 days?" Because people are feeling some pump. Like, calm the fuck down. What do they say? Stay humble and stack sats. Maybe you should listen to your own message, sir.
He's just making fun of the bet.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, no, we know he's making fun. Just totally wrecked. But look, I mean,
but he was caught at 800K in 2021, right? Odell likes some Hopium too.
Of course, everybody. See, that's
we all do.
big.
Yeah.
Everybody likes the Hopium. That's why we have a Hopium segment, because deep inside, we all have the Hopium. So it's great. It's great. Humans are funny. Okay. Anyways, let's dive into some funny stuff with the numbers. Here we go. We're gonna make everybody hungry for some absolute fiat garbage. Here we go. This is from fellow Bitcoiner Alpha Zeta. How many? I'm guessing Big Macs can 100,000 sats get you? Note, some countries have capital controls. The FX data may not be reliable. Also, the burger data comes from the Economist Big Mac Index that is published only 2 times a year. And guys, all I could say is it looks like you're getting the most Big Macs in Egypt.
I can say that time chain stats does track on the main page.
They do,
the
right?
number of Big Macs that you can get for a whole Bitcoin. So if you want to know that on a daily basis, at least for the United States, you can check that over at time chain stats.
Time chain.
I don't know quite why you'd want to, spend a whole Bitcoin on like a shitload of Big Macs, but if you did and you wanted to know the number, then there you go.
100,000 sats though on 19 Big Macs. That's. I mean, you're pretty much paying 100,000 sats for some diabetes and some heart attacks. I don't see the point in that.
Brimley,
right? Isn't it? Hey, listen. Any Family Guy reference, that can be used will be used. Okay, and we do it without shame. I mean, that's pretty much 50% of my personality. So. All right, guys. So what do we think about the Big Macs? Are we bullish on the Big Macs or not?
No, the Big Mac index is interesting. Looking at it historically, like it's a good data set. Not sure exactly how useful it is, but it is it's interesting.
No, I think it's useful because so Big Macs theoretically are kind of priced in each country according to how much that country can afford to pay on a Big Mac, and so if you track Big Macs globally. You've probably got a decent idea of inflation globally.
Yeah.
Have I looked
labor,
at this data?
energy?
No, but yeah, I don't know. It's probably one index that actually you can get quite a lot from, given a relatively small data set.
Do you guys remember the McDonald's, to celebrate their 50th anniversary in 2018, did that Big Mac coin? They issued Mac coin or something.
Yes.
And it was redeemable for a Big Mac anywhere.
So that made it worth more than the dollar.
Oh yeah, Big Macs have held up, their price better than the dollar.
Interesting.
So you're saying this was currency backed by burgers?
Yes, and they were gold-ish looking. Maybe they were copper. I don't know. They're shiny.
You know what? I'm going to try to pull up the link to it so we could show it on the show to give people reference, because
is this beef intelligence?
You know what?
I'm wearing my hat. It is not.
We should get Texas Slim on the show, man. We should get Texas Slim on the show and find out, is this beef?
I'll reach out. He'll be offended by that. But
no, he will.
Out.
We are not saying that McDonald's is beef. But we're also saying it's not beef. We don't know. Nobody knows what McDonald's is.
What's your beef, Phil?
But look, besides that, I find it interesting that McDonald's and Chuck E. Cheese do a better job at retaining their value than the U.S. currency. And not just the U.S. currency, but any currency of any country, really.
But
so
isn't it basically any sort of physical product? Almost any sort of physical product holds its value better than currency. And this is what drives a lot of the problems we have today, because you get artificial scarcity and abundance, because essentially you should hoard things because you can't collect money, right? You can't, because the currency is going down over time, the products go up in value over time. So it leads to people hoarding things, and you have all these kind of discontinuous type supply chains, which are primed for inflation rippling through.
Okay, you heard it from Walton, guys. The takeaway is we should not be hoarding Big Macs. Not worth it. Stack sats instead, and of course, stay humble. Guys, we are going to move on over to the guest discussion. The guest discussion is brought to you by CypherSafe. Check them out, CypherSafe.io. Guys, you can't trust paper. You can't just store your seed on paper. Make sure that you've got a secure place to store your Bitcoin seed, such as the CypherGrid, an absolutely awesome place to store your seed, and it comes with a fancy little punch tool. Check it out at CypherSafe.io. Also from CypherSafe, check out the absolutely beautiful, intricate Bitcoin art. Here's the Bitcoin Rolo triangle made of 100% titanium, 16 ounces. Check it out, the Bitcoin Rolo triangle at CypherSafe.io. All right, guys, as you know, for our guest in the hot seat today, joining us on the Pleb Underground, we've got T-Bane, Blockbane. So we're going to pass it over to Walton and see what kind of difficult questions he has for T-Bane. I'm just kidding. They're not really going to. They could be.
No, we're friends, but I'm gonna try and ask some serious questions.
Okay, cool.
So, Mr. T, as someone who has appeared in front of, what's the right term? You've appeared in front of like a state congress, or you've appeared in front of, I don't know, you've appeared in front of politicians to speak on behalf of Bitcoin. This is quite a divisive issue in the Bitcoin community, or at least in the Bitcoin Twitter community, of how much should Bitcoiners interact with politicians to try and further Bitcoin or to secure people's use of Bitcoin, when Bitcoin itself is being designed to be state resistant, designed to be used without needing permission, designed, it's meant to be a permissionless technology without need for custodians or intermediaries. So why should we engage with the state? Perhaps you could speak a little bit on this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was a county commission, the board of county commissioners.
Sorry, just briefly, T, if anyone hasn't seen this video, T did speak very eloquently, and I was very impressed by it, but I'm also torn between both camps. So back to you, T.
Yeah. No, I don't think it should be done lightly. It's likely needed as a last resort to attempt to push back against overregulation and misallocation of like county and state funds. So the background is, I'll keep it real brief, but they our local county government and the board of county commissioners brought a lawsuit against some local entrepreneurs that were using their flared gas to hash Bitcoin instead of flaring the gas, which was made illegal by the state, and instead of getting it to market via a network of pipelines, which was shut down in this situation due to like maintenance costs and other issues. So they had overstepped their bounds, and they essentially made it illegal to do this without actually making it illegal to do it. There's no laws, no rule sets, nothing that the county had issued to be able to make them compliant. They just brought a lawsuit in the local courts, the county district court. So it was necessary. So I don't think we shouldn't come begging or groveling to local politicians or state or federal politicians, but in this case I think it was necessary. It was an overreach of power, and I think it was very important for a lot of local Bitcoiners to stand up, and we plagued the county commission for at least 3 or 4 separate meetings over 3 or 4 different months. And one of the county commissioners approached us after the 3rd or 4th time and told us that this was the most public comment that they've received on any issue during his tenure on the board. So I think it was very important to make our voices heard and get out there and speak truth to power. What was interesting about it is, months later, the judge on the case threw it out and said the county commissioners were, it wasn't even the commissioners. It was like the district attorney and everything. They were overstepping their bounds. There wasn't the right legal framework to do so. So I think it was very important in this case. And the most interesting thing for me, from my perspective on it, was that the commissioners themselves didn't really have, the publicly elected portion of the county government didn't really have strong opinions either way, and they were willing to hear their constituents. So that was like good, but really it was this executive underbelly that was running the county on behalf of the commissioners that were really anti-Bitcoin, anti-oil and gas, anti-energy, and so Bitcoin kind of got caught in the crossfire of this environmental movement to attempt to stifle it. But in reality, it was a no-brainer for this operator to attempt to mine Bitcoin with that, and it made sense for the county and state level too, because if he was not able to take his natural gas to market, which he couldn't flare it anymore because of the laws, his only option was Bitcoin, or he'd have to shut in those wells. and there's hundreds of wells already shut in on the county, and there's a state level report that says anywhere from $300,000 to $750,000 is what it costs the state and the taxpayers to try to mitigate these shut in and abandoned wells. So it was it not only did it expand the county's tax base by letting him do this, it also avoided a huge externality that the people would have had to pay for. So it really made a lot of sense. I'm glad the courts decided with the people. So I think it's worthwhile to approach the centers of power when necessary.
Can I clarify some nuance here? To me, it sounds like you're saying that it's not Bitcoin that can be overregulated, but Bitcoin mining that can be overregulated
the people,
and
yeah.
forced out of certain areas, and that's damaging essentially to the economy of those areas when they have particular energy resources. I mean, it makes perfect logical sense to me, but I think it's important for us to be as specific as possible when talking about regulation and Bitcoin, because a lot of things get conflated and people go, oh, Bitcoin is, you can't regulate it, it's permissionless, etc., etc. I agree, it's pretty difficult to stop someone from sending or receiving a Bitcoin transaction, but when it comes to mining, if you don't have your own energy sources, then there is that is a kind of place where regulation can target Bitcoin type operations. But I think we should very be specific that is Bitcoin mining has a lot of regulatory risk. Use of Bitcoin, not so much.
Yeah, the network doesn't care. It's but people can be regulated, right? So I think that was the Bitcoin was going to be fine either way, but the users of Bitcoin are still a pain point. So I think locally these users stood up for what they believed in and made some headway, and the courts threw it out.
What did you find was most challenging about, I guess, trying to get your message across to these politicians, because like you explained that there seems to be kind of a wall, right? Like there seems to be this wall of either, I don't know if it's executives or whatnot, but essentially that there's almost like a filter where the narrative kind of changes as it gets to these county commissioners, and somehow, I don't know, I just feel like if you could shed some light on kind of like the stuff that maybe you thought they would understand, but that they didn't. I guess I'm just trying to find out the stuff that they really had problems with.
Yeah, well, I think, it was actually refreshing to see a bunch of the county commissioners actually wanted to meet with our group afterwards, and they set up some good meetings. We had some good discussions, and so that was rewarding and refreshing. I was excited that the county commissioners actually heard us. Took the time, were willing to talk to us. But the big thing was that they have this underbelly in the county government, these unelected bureaucrats, essentially, that were kind of doing the bidding of the county commissioners without the county commissioners having even a vote on the topic. There was no anti-Bitcoin vote. There was no policy or anything that was put forward by the commission. But what was happening was their underlings were pushing forward this kind of anti-energy, anti-Bitcoin, anti-mining narrative. And in part because there's been a lot of really local negative media coverage on the topic. Like, I think the Denver Post, the Colorado Sun, a couple different, regional news entities were coming out pretty hard against Bitcoin. And they've been against the oil and gas industry for more than a decade here, pretty heavily. And so we kind of got lumped in with that now that some oil and gas entities were using Bitcoin to their benefit. So that was the thing that kind of caught me by surprise. And obviously you hear about it, but just the fact that these politicians elected by the people weren't really actually dictating what the county government was doing. There was this whole this under branch of the county that was kind of acting on their own fruition, unelected.
What pisses me off is that they're unscientific by their own judgment. It's like if you genuinely believe that we have, significant problems due to man-made climate change because of, too much methane for those of you in the United States, carbon dioxide and water vapor in the atmosphere, then surely burning the methane and producing more carbon dioxide is actually a good thing, because methane is more of a more potent a greenhouse gas that basically infrared gets absorbed by bonds and then re-emitted back to Earth, and the carbon hydrogen bond does this very well. But if that's the case, then they should be happy that these oil and gas companies are burning it rather than venting it or flaring it. No?
Yeah.
So you can't have it both ways.
No, of course they can. Of course they can have it both ways.
Like, choose.
They're insane. Of course they can. But you know what? I mean, look, this brings up a very important point, right? Is that, okay, so look, we understand that, right, Bitcoin peer-to-peer transactions can't be stopped, but people can be regulated, right? And businesses can be regulated. So, okay, fine. They start to put a lot of pressure on Bitcoin miners that are essentially getting their electricity, and this is just a supposition, right? They're getting their electricity off of the grid, right? So feasibly, what does that do? That forces people.
Tarantula. That's what that
exactly.
does. That creates tarantula.
Exactly. That creates tarantula. That's exactly what we're talking about, hodl tarantula, guys. And that's exactly what it is, because what's going to happen is that people, and even I think Dirty Shotcha, another guy on Twitter who's also doing some like off the grid stuff, like all you're going to do is piss these people off, and they're going to be like, you know what? Fine. You don't want us to use your energy? We're going to use our own that you can't touch. And then what? And so again, what is this doing?
And then we're going to teach the Native Americans to do the same.
It's forcing innovation, right? So, you know what? Like this is, Bitcoin, it just like, I'm sure Blockbane will appreciate this, right? Bitcoin was born in the darkness,
Bitcoin continues to reward the sovereign at the expense of those that aren't.
It thrives off anti-fragility. So it's like, okay, fine. You want to stop us this way? Then we're going to find another way. So
T, seeing as you're on Pleb Underground, and to me, you are very much a pleb. I'd like to hear what you think a Bitcoin pleb is, what that means, and what someone would have to do to lose that Bitcoin pleb status, because I think we see that happening not infrequently. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, well, I guess the root source of the word is the Roman underclass of society. Just a normal, non elevated Bitcoiner pleb. Nothing serious, nothing important.
You're saying we can't get elevated? Uh-oh.
No, I don't think so. I think that might be the delineation, right?
We are highly
getting. Yeah, absolutely. So if you start getting picked up by major media and starting your own venture capital entity, who knows, different things where you're no longer that underclass of society, and you're rising up. Yeah, you're probably not a pleb in the root source of the.
You mean word, like when you've gone through so much ego death that you start a hedge fund called Ego Death Capital, that sort of thing?
but that could possibly be it. Yeah, that might very well be the threshold.
So let me ask you this: Are plebs important to Bitcoin? I mean, I think just in general, in general culture, I think everybody.
Phil, wrong question. Not are they? Why are they, or how are they? It's not a binary. Of course they are. Why are they important? T?
I like that. Okay.
They're important because that's the vast majority of Bitcoiners would likely fall under that pleb category, right? Just simple Bitcoiners, verifying their UTXOs and stacking sats, running their node, possibly throwing some hash around like that. They're the underbelly of the network. And I think any given user falls under the plebeian. So I think of course they're important. we're the folks relaying transactions and confirming and verifying and and if you piss off the plebs, we'll take our you take your hash rate elsewhere, or you take your business elsewhere, whether that's stacking sats or throwing hash around. Like, I think they're the silent majority, right? Sometimes not so
tolerant silent majority.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Idea on this, guys. The plebs ultimately are savers. And society needs savers, and savers got destroyed by fiat currency and artificially low interest rates. There was this, you used to hear this stuff on the news, 20 years ago. Are they kind of, is the Fed or whatever favoring savers or lenders? That conversation disappeared, right? Because savers just continually got more and more wrecked. Bitcoin plebs are savers. Other Bitcoiners, maybe they're speculators, but the Bitcoin plebs are savers, and savers are those that are working to have lower time preference, and helping those around them to build lower time preference. Essentially, savers are those who are looking at the future with hope, trying to build. Savers should be the core of society. And they've been undermined by fiat currency. Bitcoin finally restores the ability of plebs to save and to build for the future.
The less people save, the more essentially the more they can steal, right? The more the government can steal. So this is obviously it works for their,
save Bitcoin, save yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And on that note, go ahead, Blockbean.
No, the plebeians are just the commoners. They're, Bitcoin gives power to the commoners, the average user, and so power to the plebs. Yeah.
Absolutely agreed, man. Absolutely agreed. All right, guys. This wraps up our guest discussion, and we are going to move it on over to REKT. REKT is brought to you by CryptoCloaks. Check them out, CryptoCloaks.com. Awesome 3D prints by fellow Bitcoiners. Use the code PlebUnderground for 5% off. Awesome prints such as the 3D printed grenade. Fits an open dime. If you get the bigger one, you can fit a signing device. That's CryptoCloaks.com and use the code PlebUnderground for 5% off. That's right, 5% off. Check it out, guys. There was so much REKT this week. So much REKT. We had to pick it out. We're going to kick it off with this tweet, which was deleted. There's multiple sources for it. Greta Thunberg tweet from 2018. That's right. Top climate scientist is warning that climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years. Guys, I just want to point out this is the exact same type of bullshit that they fed us in the 80s with hairspray. Okay, hairspray is going to destroy the ozone layer and all your skin's going to fry if you don't.
Phil, they actually did make progress on that. Like, there was
they did.
that actually, that wasn't a scam. This is a scam.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. What was it really not a scam? I don't really know, because they totally stopped talking about it and nobody cares anymore. So apparently hairspray is all good again.
They replaced the
they replaced with some other chemical that causes something else. Please, okay? It's fucking bullshit. But anyways, I just want to point out, guys, it's 5 years later. That tweet is deleted and we are not dead, okay? The oceans have not boiled. We are all still here. So these people, you really have to wonder when somebody feeds you time-sensitive information, okay? Anyways, she's wrecked. That was wrecked.
So she's saying join her trading group?
Pretty
basically.
much.
Is that what you're saying, Phil? Yeah.
By my signals. Not my signals, of course, her signals. Anyways, moving on. George Gammon has been doing a lot of research into the Bank of International Settlements. Been studying their plan of global CBDCs for the last couple of days. Okay, I take that back. He has not been doing a lot of research, but creds and a couple of days. One horrifying realization I've had is all private property that has legal ownership, think house car stocks, will be recorded via tokenization on their unified ledger based on their rules. Uh-oh. And fellow Bitcoiner Luke Mikic writes back and goes, correct. This is why being close to 100% Bitcoin is the most logical decision one can make if they share the beliefs we share. If you value freedom, all of your assets in the fiat system will be stripped away and taxed away to zero as the state pays for its bankruptcy. And then, of course, George comes back with, Luke, you need to read and fully understand every word of that report. That's right. You just sit the fuck back down, buddy. Okay? Because I know stuff. He's been reading it for a few days. There is no scenario where it's bullish for Bitcoin if they implement a global unified ledger. Yeah, that is. Anyways, getting everybody used to that type of technology. Yeah, that is. And then they start to understand the difference between government controlled censorable money and Bitcoin. Yeah, I think there's some value there, bud. But it's okay. It's okay. You're the expert. Every advantage of Bitcoin Lightning Network outside of 21 million and some form of privacy is gone. Unfortunately for the average Joe, a CBDC global unified ledger will be vastly superior to Bitcoin. Okay.
Can I explain some game theory on this one?
Yes, but hold on. Let me just finish this, okay? If the argument for Bitcoin is that it's superior money and people always gravitate to the superior money, that argument for the normies would be in favor of a CBDC. All right. Walton?
Yeah, okay. So essentially, George Gammon is a midwit. But what this comes down to is either you're bullish on humanity or you're bullish on governments, is how I look at this. Either you're bullish on people or you're bullish on the state. If you're bullish on people, then you expect Bitcoin to win. And if you're bullish on the state, then you're bullish on the state having more wealth, more power, which means that the CIA are going to want to buy more Bitcoin because that's the only cash type thing in this future world where we only have CBDC and Bitcoin. Because how else are the CIA going to bribe all the people they want to bribe if they haven't got any cash? And cash will be gone, so therefore they're going to be trying to buy Bitcoin. In which case, Bitcoin moons anyway. So explain to me this: how does Bitcoin not do well in a world where you only have a CBDC and Bitcoin?
Dude, I do not get it at all, to be honest. T-Bane, you have any thoughts? You have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think his original post is talking about the Bank of International Settlements. And I think if anybody's interested, there's a really good book. It's called The Tower of Basel. And it kind of talks about the history, the founding of the Bank of International Settlements and the corruption going back years. Their vaults are filled with Nazi gold, and they're just generally not good people. And so I wouldn't trust my value or my money with them. And I think the only way that some of these, corrupt central banking institutions or international banking institutions can institute something like a CBDC is through force. And yeah, we'll see. The free market will decide. And
I don't think it's through force. I think it's through desperation. I think you look at stimmies. The only way that people are going to be able to get their stimmy is going to be on the CBDC, and then it's going to be limited to whatever they spend it on. This is happening as time goes on, as inflation keeps going, as low income jobs get replaced more and more with automation. You're going to have, I think, vast swathes of the population unable to do any sort of meaningful work that generates real income. You're going to have a kind of bifurcation where and you're going to get increasing calls from more and more people for some sort of universal basic income, and you see that being trialed all over the world already.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, T-Bane.
It'll either be carrot or stick, like you're saying. They'll either incentivize people to use it by issuing shitloads to them, or forcing them in other means.
But to T-Bane, to your point, I had a response I had a response to George, and I said, George, Bitcoiners have been sounding the alarm for quite a few years. You may want to start paying more attention to our content, and I think that really goes to your point about the history of the BIS, right? Because while these guys are sitting here, to me, I just see it as it's like they all just want the state to fix it for them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I see these people that claim to be, like, he says he's a libertarian, freedom-oriented, all this stuff, but like...
Low T.
Yeah, like, but deep inside, daddy government, if you could just kind of fix this shit for me, okay? Just fix it for me, and I'll be good, right? We're good. We're good if you fix it for me. So I think that these guys, they're LARPing. Right? They're LARPing that they're doing all of this research. They're LARPing that they understand what's going on. And when you take a look at Bitcoiner content, which goes back to your point about the history, right? The Tower of Basel, right? And goes back to the history of the BIS. History matters, right? And people, how does that saying go? Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it, or those who don't remember those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it. I mean, look,
absolutely.
There's a reason for that, right? Like, there's a reason. Like, we need to know where we come from so we understand the mistakes that we've already made. And this business of central banking is a fucking mistake we've already made, and we're totally living through it. So when I see comments like this from a guy like George Gammon, I'm just like, why are you amplifying their signal? Why are you, you know what I mean? Like, why are you even trying to be putting in this idea into people's heads that they should be entertaining a CBDC?
Phil, people like George Gammon make money through just talking about crap, right? I mean, I guess you could say we do the same, but we're a bit more, we have slightly higher integrity about it. Not just slightly. There is an aspect of there are a whole bunch of people in kind of financial Twitter, right, and the financial media who just talk and get paid to talk and promote things. I mean, he might get paid by the BIS for all we know. There's a whole bunch of incentive structures, financial incentive structures that do not get, truly shown as all of this stuff filters through the financial media, right? Like how much is propaganda when these guys on the telly are telling you to buy stocks? You don't just think Wall Street are ready to dump these. Like, so much of this stuff is coordinated subterfuge of the average person.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next story, which is, I think, unfortunately, the biggest story of the week. Let's dive into it. We've been covering this. We've been covering Prime Trust on the clips throughout the week, but I definitely wanted to bring it up.
Subprime bust.
Subprime bust. That's right. I like that, Walton. Walton comes up with all these good catchphrases. I suck at this stuff. Okay, here we go. All right, guys. We know the deal. This dropped a couple of days ago. Bitgo terminates plan to buy Prime Trust. Bitgo on Thursday pulled out of its tentative agreement to purchase Prime Trust outright, with industry participants pointing to ongoing problems with Prime Trust deposits derailing the planned purchase's completion. Okay. Shortly after reaching a tentative agreement, this is where I think it gets kind of shady, to be acquired by Bitgo, Prime Trust halted deposits that cast doubt this week over the planned purchase's completion. And I just want to add here, the clip I recorded yesterday, clarified, it's not just, I don't know why they worded it this way, because multiple articles worded it as the deposits were halted. It was deposits and withdrawals. Everything was halted. So it wasn't just one or the other. So I find that kind of strange. Now, look, the other piece to this, which we did discuss last week, but unfortunately the story just has legs. So it continues on, and people are starting to dive in and do some digging into some of the management, right? Some of the management from Prime Trust, such as Scott Purcell. And people
shout out Humble. Shout out Humble for doing some good research on this.
That's right. Humble Warrior, definitely shout out to her for doing some amazing research. And people are starting to ask questions. Why, I forget if it's Tim or Tom Paegeler. I may have his name totally wrong, but he was the original CEO that left. And people were wondering why he left, right? Because obviously, they give the generic reasons to the media, but I don't know. Based on some of these very interesting findings, maybe it's possible that he didn't want to be associated with the type of people that were running PrimeTrust. And when I say that, I'm gonna.
The question is, are they going to get off scot-free?
Okay, so there's different pieces, right? Are they going to get off scot-free? That is a good.
It's just a terrible joke because isn't the guy's name Scott? And
it was a good play on words.
His wife's a porn star or something. I heard like there's some crazy stories coming out of this.
The piece to this that is kind of alarming, right, is that the 3 top people from PrimeTrust moved over to Fortress.io, which technically means that whether you want to accept this or not, the culture, right? And those of us who didn't work there, we don't really know, but essentially the culture that seems to have brought down PrimeTrust has seemed to move over to Fortress.io. That's my opinion, and I would be concerned about that. So, I mean, T-Bane, what are your thoughts on this whole situation? Have you been keeping up with this? And if you have,
Yeah, I've been loosely following it. I think I don't have too much to say, or I'm not terribly informed on it, but I think in general, it just like reiterates the idea that not your keys, not your coins. Trusted third parties are security holes, and it just hits another good point. Take custody of your own assets. With Bitcoin, you actually have the ability to. You don't have to trust these third parties. You don't have to keep going through this. I started becoming interested in Bitcoin right around the time the collapse of Mt. Gox, and so I had a family member go through it. He got goxed. And so it's always burnt in the back of my mind. And time again, it's every year. Sometimes it's multiple entities a year go belly up, and folks lose their coins. Right? It was FTX last year, among a myriad of others. So I think it's just,
do folks lose their coins, or do they lose access to claims to their coins, right? If it's not your keys, it's not your coins, right? This is what the lesson is, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have them in self-custody, they're not your coins yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And the importance is just hold your own keys, verify your transactions on your own hardware if possible, and just keep on keeping on like that. I think that's the big lesson from here. We can speculate on all the juicy news, and seeing them back out like that's not, can't be great.
That is not good.
T, quick question on self-custody. Are you a multi-sig maxi like myself, or do you like passphrases, or do you just like single sig basic? How do you like to do it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a time and place for all those, and it kind of depends on your your tolerance for risk and the amount that you're trying to custody. But no, I would recommend any or all of those to folks, and any of those 3 are better than keeping your coins on Coinbase or an entity that uses PrimeTrust.
I think keeping it on a hot wallet on your phone is better than most exchanges.
You're
it depends on what we're talking about, but like how often do hot wallets on phones actually get hacked? Like Bitcoin only software wallets, it doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen very often.
In a pinch, it would be
especially now
you
can get cheap signing devices like things like tap signers, right? You could have, or a Jade, right? Like you can for like $50 or less, right? You can get some pretty quality
signer.
Right, you can build your own, you can do a Spectre DIY. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can do this. There's no excuse. If you need some help, reach out to someone. Anyone in the Bitcoin community will happily try and teach you a little bit more about how you can secure your Bitcoin. Guys, you got to try. And you've got to treat it as a process. Each 6 months, do a review. Treat your stack as if it's worth 10x what it's currently worth. Because with full sovereignty comes full responsibility. You can't afford to fuck this up, so don't.
And absolutely right, Walton. And I just want to go back to T-Bane to what you said. I don't know if it's like recency bias or something like that, but we tend to make like a really big deal about all of these happenings, right? Like, and I don't mean us as individuals, but just as a group, as a culture, as a community, whatever fucking words you want to use that'll, you know, simplify that idea. But essentially, every cycle we see this. Like at this point, okay, if we're keeping tally, there's a whole bunch of exchanges we've never even heard of that totally disappeared. The only ones that we actually cover are the ones that we heard of. Okay? So it's really like, already when you're dabbling in shitcoins, you're in an extremely low liquidity market with absolutely no fail safes. And then on top of that, you amplify that by leaving what value you have on a platform that you have, to Walton's point, absolutely no connection to. All you have is a claim on something that you don't even own necessarily. And look, we can absolutely see that, because what ends up happening, right? What ends up happening to Bitcoin or any kind of quote unquote crypto when an exchange goes down? Nobody gets any of that back. Okay, they take all of that. So I just, you know, I know that the main story was really PrimeTrust, but again, guys, we cannot trust these big players. And to a certain extent, I kind of think that sometimes that's why they use the certain words that they use in their names, to convey that sense, so that you do trust them. And I mean, let's face it, right? With a name like PrimeTrust, what are you doing? Number one, trust. So to a person reading that, even that gives them the warm and fuzzies, not realizing that they're doing who knows what behind the curtain with your money.
Another way of looking at it, though, Phil, a prime has two factors. Maybe you want more factors, such that then some factors can go wrong, but before you get your subprime crisis.
Oh gosh, I'm kind of waiting, because I feel that we don't really know what happened with the funds in the background. Like, we know that they provide rails for exchanges, right? Like, PrimeTrust isn't an exchange themselves per se, but they are a custodian, and they do provide API keys for trading pairs and the rails and liquidity to make trading possible. So the question is, when do we find out what exactly went wrong? Because I don't think we actually know. At least I don't know, unless either of you guys do. I think it's Walton's looking at me like we know.
We might not ever know, right?
Exactly, that's the answer.
Yeah.
If you think the fiat world and lawyers don't just create more obscurity with regards to the truth, then yeah, I don't really know what to say. Like, the reason we like Bitcoin is because it is verifiable historical truth that we don't have in the fiat world, where it's about who you know, because that's what enables what kind of obfuscation or privacy or whatever, what strings you can pull. You're never going to find out the whole story because the incentives don't align with that.
Complexity works for the people that implement the complexity. And to your point, that is exactly what it is. It's complexity for complexity's sake. And since they're the ones that invent it, they're the ones that quote unquote understand it. And they are the ones that know that it's vaporware. Anyways, that wraps up the REKT segment. And we are moving on over to the Hopium.
The Hopium. Up next, we have Hopium, sponsored by Represent. Represent are an awesome clothing brand producing limited edition shirts like this that you can't buy, but I have one of, and about 50 other plebs do too. If you came to Pleb Tacos, yeah, you got one of the coolest shirts, coolest Bitcoin shirts that exist. But you can get something almost as cool if you head over to representltd.com and use the code PlebUnderground. You get a discount on all of the goodies there. So once again, head over to representltd.com to get some of the finest low-key Bitcoin apparel and a bunch of other cool stuff. Guys, so Hopium this week, we have one story. Can you guess what it is?
Well, the main Hopium theme this week seems to be that evil institutions that we we despise, we're all of a sudden cheering for. Does it have anything to do with that?
Oh, you mean the one that had 4 years ago? Its chief investment officer Rick Ryder was saying, "Oh yeah, Bitcoin's going to replace gold and insurance and all this kind of stuff." Oh, these guys decided they might want to do more Bitcoin, even though it was only a few months ago that they started offering it to their institutional investors, and they just keep on. Oh, and wait, there's a dip. Oh, now's a good time for legacy finance. Oh, wait, the crypto bros are getting wrecked. Okay, now's a good time. Now's a good time. Okay, of course, it's BlackRock. And good man over at Voltage, Bobby Shell, quoting Mr. Fink here. Bitcoin's decentralization, scarcity, borderless nature, and growing adoption make it an ideal candidate to become the world reserve currency. So BlackRock, of course, filing for their ETF this week, which basically everyone expects to get approved because it's something like 1 in 600 or something like that they haven't had approved. But yeah, basically they own everything, right? BlackRock own the Fed or something. I'm going full conspiracy nut here, but there's it seems like everyone turns to Larry when they need some money, right?
So it's very interesting. And to your point, Walton, that is right. They have filed for 576 ETFs in the US, and they have been approved for 575 in their history. So the chances of this not getting approved are probably slim to none. And to your point about the tinfoil hat thing, it's not necessarily tinfoil hat when your company owns shares in the majority of the companies in your country.
If I can say just a nuanced point on that, there is some misunderstanding of what that means. BlackRock are one of the largest providers of mutual funds, of index funds.
Yes.
And so if you have millions of people investing in all of these companies that make up these indices through these kind of funds, then essentially you get asset managers like BlackRock holding the equity of significant portions of equity of all of these companies. Now, does it mean that BlackRock owns that? Yeah, there's some nuance to it, right? Not your keys, not your coins, not your bank, not your equity. I don't know. But with this, I think this is a different thing entirely, right? We're not talking about equity anymore. We're talking about Bitcoin. We're talking about an ETF, and many people get excited. Oh, paper ETF. Sorry, not paper. Bitcoin ETF. Oh, boomers are gonna finally be able to get exposure to Bitcoin. That's good. No, it's not good. This is paper Bitcoin. Why did gold fail? Gold failed because of paper gold. Because the gold was custodied by all of these big wankers, and they stashed all the gold in their vaults, gave out a bunch of paper, gave out more and more paper, and eventually they diluted the gold, right? We're not doing this with Bitcoin. Then Bitcoin fails. Then Bitcoin fails. If all of the Bitcoin in the world is just with the banks, Bitcoin's failed. The whole point of Bitcoin is that it's meant to be used without custodians, without intermediaries. And is this an attack on Bitcoin? I mean, yeah, you can say that. Are they really smart enough to think of it like that? No. Do they realize actually how it can work? Probably not really. But is this something that should be applauded? No. Are there already ETFs in a few different countries around the world? Yes, there's a Canadian one, there's a Dutch one, there's a couple others. There are already Bitcoin ETFs. There are already a bunch of future ETFs, and I believe the SEC approved another futures ETF just today, a nice leverage one. There are already all of these fiat legacy financial instruments for exposure to Bitcoin. Go fuck yourself. Buy real Bitcoin, withdraw it to self-custody, and fuck the big banks. I remember once I bought something on the internet, and there was a discount code. If you use Bitcoin, you put the code in, you got 50% off. And what was the code? It was fuck the banks. So fuck the banks. Don't ETF. Buy some Bitcoin and self-custody.
I don't think that they are actually thinking of killing Bitcoin, because so to the average person, right? Like we're inside of an echo chamber, right? We've already been red pilled, orange pilled. We've taken all the pills, the black pills, the blue pills, all these pills. Okay. So we are thinking of things in a significantly different way than these people. These people, to them, all of the US dollars and all of this stuff, like this is what's real. That's what's real to them. So in my eyes, they're just seeing this as a way to capitalize on Bitcoin. So do I think that they are intentionally attacking Bitcoin? No, I don't. I think they're just being greedy and they're working towards their incentives, and they realize the massive opportunity in that market. Now, to say that, does that mean that they can't indirectly harm Bitcoin? Indeed, I think that they can harm the Bitcoin price and public perception. I'll say this, right? Because essentially, if they can do to Bitcoin what they did to gold, then they can cause the price to just stagnate for years and years and years. Granted, gold's market is approximately $12 trillion today. Okay, so if we take a look at that for Bitcoin, right, you're talking about well over a 5x from where we are now from our market. So, I mean, even more than that, right? I'm not even doing the numbers right, but exactly, like it is just a huge, it's just a huge upside. But the other piece to this, right? The other piece to this, which I do think it matters. Okay. See, gold, we don't actually know how much gold there is in the earth. I mean, there's a whole bunch of estimates, and we also know that all the stuff of the universe, right, and of the solar system is made of gold as well. But we do know that we mine approximately 1 to 2% of the current gold supply every year. So there is always...
That's with flat pricing.
That's with flat pricing.
Right? With gold, there is no price inelasticity with respect to supply. So if the price goes up, more gold miners go to work. There is no difficulty adjustment that then kicks in that means that you get more consistent supply, whereas there is that in Bitcoin.
Exactly. Thank you. And as a result, right, I believe that they've been able to essentially handicap gold through all these various methods, right? Because of the way gold works. Now, if we look at Bitcoin, we all know the story, right? You only have 21 million. The government can't just control it. They can't censor the transactions. You can travel all over the world with millions or billions of dollars worth in value of Bitcoin, and no one will know. Try doing that with gold. We all know the truth. You can't do it. Okay? You just can't. So I think, it's going to sound corny. I think this time it's different. I think that they can't kill Bitcoin. I don't think that they even want to yet. And I do believe that by the time they figure out that they genuinely want to kill Bitcoin, it's going to be way too freaking late. Is that enough Hopium? I think that's good. That's good Hopium.
I'm just cracking up there, Phil, because you went... I know it's corny, but, and then just went and talked about some gold for a bit.
You always catch all the wordplay. I catch no wordplay. I forget it. I'm regarded. All right, T-Bane, you listened to enough of our rant. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it could go either way, right? Like you see BlackRock with its tentacles in every industry, pushing this ESG narrative and equity over equality, and they're definitely not a good entity. But ideally, Bitcoin's incentive structure is set up to withstand these types of users, even the super user. If they align themselves with Bitcoin, then they might very well benefit, and the network would benefit. But yeah, there's obviously some concerns. There's attack vectors. Someone was mentioning the other day, talking about how they could, they're already a majority, shareholder in a lot of different entities and pushing them towards the CSG narrative. Well, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch to say that they could become majority shareholders in, the 10 or 15 publicly traded Bitcoin miners that are now heavily based in the United States. So I think, yeah, that's something to be concerned about. They have a lot of capital that they could push around and do things with. But you look back over the block size wars, and the majority of the business entities and business interests at the time signed the New York Agreement, and things were looking very dire for Bitcoin. They're trying to dictate, development and push different versions down to users' nodes. And the plebs pushed back. Your average person maybe spooled up a node then when they wouldn't have. And so I think it's built. If Bitcoin isn't built to withstand this, then it's not gonna survive. And I firmly believe that it is built for it, and that Bitcoin will come out of this stronger, regardless of whether it's BlackRock or 100 others. I think we're ready to rock and bring it on.
All right. So you recognized one extra point there that we hadn't mentioned, which is BlackRock. Essentially, in their terms and conditions, their legalese, talking about forking Bitcoin to create some new ESG thing. Well, good luck. I'm going to be dumping them if I get those airdropped. Yeah.
I think, you know what, and you brought up a very good point about the New York agreement, okay? And I think everybody should read The Block Size War. I think we've mentioned it a million times, and we'll mention it again. If you haven't read it or listened to it on Audible, check out The Block Size War. It's incredibly important to understand Bitcoin's history, and it also helps shed a lot of light on the importance of nodes and miners, okay, and incentives. And to your point, T-Bane, we all know how the story ended, right? Bcash is just a faded garbage shit fork of Bitcoin. Now, I do want to say, when it first forked, we all saw it happen. Okay, we saw the hash rate change. Okay, and then all of a sudden we started to see Bcash's price rise, and there was a day, maybe 2 days, where people were like, "Oh my God," and then it just fell off a cliff. So, as much money as they have, as much influence as they have, the beauty of Bitcoin is in its decentralization, right? And in the fact that we get to vote with our nodes. Okay, and I don't mean that like a vote on the network, so to speak, but we get to vote in the sense that we get to verify our own transactions, and we get to actually, host our own keys. And not only that, but at the same time, for some of us, right, who have miners, we were able to plug them in and mine the main chain and keep that hash rate up. So again, Bitcoin, Bitcoin incentives aligned such that it was people understood that it was beneficial to them to stay with real Bitcoin, and they understood the disbenefits of moving over to this shit chain. And as a result, here we are 13, 14 years later, and Bitcoin's hash rate continues to accumulate, and more people around the world, begrudgingly and not, are paying more attention to Bitcoin.
So what you're saying is that the world needs more hash, and we've got our guy from Denver, so I'm sure he agrees.
They sell that shit over the counter here.
Damn it!
Yeah.
They do in the Pacific Northwest too.
Damn it!
Yeah, Bitcoin, like you're saying, it's not a democracy in the traditional sense. But yeah, when folks say one CPU, one vote, the reality with the network is that it's one node, one CPU, one veto. As a user, we get to veto these changes. We get to choose which version of the software that we're using, and not BlackRock, not the New York agreement. Like you said, it was pretty bleak. It was pretty dark. Couple days after that all happened, yeah, it was.
I was scared. I was actually worried. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, is there nuance to this? Again, is it not that we get to choose what kind of Bitcoin that we accept given our node's rules? It's not as simple as one node, one vote. It's about saying, well, because my node has this set of rules, this is real Bitcoin, this is fake Bitcoin. That's my understanding, at least.
No, you get to choose. The network chooses, the nodes choose, the plebs choose, the users choose. And it was dark, it was bleak. But like you said earlier, Bitcoin, these BlackRock merely adopted the darkness, right? We were born in it, molded by it. So I think the network's ready.
Dude, you know what? That is an excellent way to end the segment and the show. All right. BlackRock is not stopping Bitcoin. Anyways, guys, That does it for us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check us out on our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. If you want to stream us sats, check us out on fountain.fm. You could stream us sats through Breeze, and we've also got our brand new website all redone. Check out our meme generator at PlebUnderground.com. Walton, how do we end this, my dude?
Fuckshitcoins.com. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.
That's right, guys. Catch you next week.
Thanks, fellas.